The Chiefs' pass rush has shown considerable improvement since Charles Omenihu returned to the lineup. This week was no exception, as they managed 5 sacks of Russell Wilson without Chris Jones. Let's take a look at all 5 of these sacks and see what the film review can tell us about what's going on with the Chiefs' pass rush right now. We'll pick it up here with 14:03 to go in the first quarter. At this point, this is the Steelers' first drive of the game. It's a 0-0 game, and they have a 3rd and 2 at their own 38-yard line. So let's run this play, and then we'll take a look at what happened. So Wilson's in the gun empty. He drops back, then tries to spin out and loses the ball, ultimately falling on it himself. That's a sack that ends up being credited to Mike Danna for a loss of 11, and it forces a Steelers punt. So let's come back here and take a look at what's going on. So first of all, this is a very interesting formation from the Steelers. They are actually in 13 personnel, but they line up everybody out with an empty backfield. So this is Najee Harris, the running back. And on the right, look like we have 3 tight ends. This looks like Pat Freiermuth, Darnell Washington, and Michael Pruitt out here all lined up. And then we have George Pickens as the sole wide receiver. So they come in with like a heavy personnel grouping on 3rd and 2, making you think run. And the Chiefs respond with their base. They have 3 linebackers on the field and only 4 defensive backs. They got big Mike Pennell, their run-stuffing defensive tackle, in. So the Steelers are trying to show run with their big personnel, but then they spread everybody out. So they're trying to get the Chiefs in a heavier defense and spread them out. What they end up doing as far as their route combinations, they have Najee Harris clear out, getting Trent McDuffie to run with him. George Pickens comes in, and he ultimately gets isolated on Drew Tranquill, which is a very favorable matchup coverage-wise. And it looks like they have him kind of running either a curl or it could be a whip route. It's kind of hard to tell based on how Pickens runs the route, and we'll talk about that in a minute. Washington runs an out. Freiermuth comes up and runs a curl, and Pruitt runs kind of a post. The Chiefs have this covered in man-to-man with cover 1. So this is our deep safety right here, and Nick Bolton ends up being the robber defender underneath. And if you notice at the snap, Bolton kind of cheats over toward Pickens to kind of almost be a second help there. So let's look at what Wilson sees as he drops back. He hits the back of his drop, and you can see he's looking over to his left to start. Now let's start by looking at the route that Pickens runs. So this is like a dream, right? You have Pickens isolated. Now, Drew Tranquill's a good coverage linebacker, but he's a linebacker, and this is their number 1 wide receiver. And Pickens just kind of comes up, turns, and it's almost like a little hitch route, but there isn't enough to get Tranquill to commit anywhere. So to me, if this is going to be a whip route, then he's got to come in and sell that in really hard, which a whip route would be very, very good in this situation, right? Because you've got Harris clearing out. You've got a linebacker who can't run with him, and his help is on the inside. So if you fake a route coming in and then come back out, I would imagine Pickens definitely has the agility to get open against a linebacker in that situation. However, it's hard to tell what he's doing here. If this is a whip route, he doesn't nearly sell the in route enough to get Tranquill to commit, right? He just kind of comes up and then turns back. Tranquill's able to stay with him. If this is a hitch, then you have to press hard enough vertically to get Tranquill to at least turn his hips a little bit and then turn back so that Tranquill has to commit somewhere. The way that Pickens runs this route, Tranquill doesn't really have to do anything, and he's able to stay with him. And you can see that Wilson is first looking in this direction. It looks like Pickens is his first read. And then here he comes off of it. He doesn't like it because he sees, based on the turn here, Pickens isn't going to get open. Now he's looking over to his right side, and I'm not sure if he's looking toward Washington or toward Pruitt. Pruitt kind of looks like he's open here, right? He looks like he's won enough on this route. I mean, it's somewhat tight coverage, but like this is a throw down the middle of the field that can be placed to at least give him a chance. For whatever reason, on this side of the field, Wilson didn't like what he saw. And then by the time he's kind of come off of read 2, so this is read 1, he's looking over at Pickens, doesn't like it. Then he comes back over to the right. It's unclear whether he's looking here. If he's looking here, I understand why he doesn't like it. If he looks here, kind of looks like that could be thrown, but he doesn't like it, whatever he sees. And by that time, Danna has walked Dan Moore right into his back. So in the meantime, while all this is happening, the Chiefs pass rush, especially the edges with Karlaftis on Broderick Jones and Danna on Dan Moore, are just walking the tackles back, and Wilson feels that pressure, and Dan Moore actually bumps into Wilson's back, which forces then Wilson to try to escape. You can see him stumbling. He's stumbling here because his left tackle has backed right into him. So he tries to spin out, loses his balance, and unfortunately puts his ball hand down in order to try to regain his balance and loses the ball when the ball hits the ground, fumbling it. Luckily for him, Danna was pursuing so hard that he ran by the ball enough that Wilson was able to dive on it and maintain possession. So let's see this from the end zone view. So we can see Wilson's progression pretty well. Here's where he's looking over at Pickens. He's looking at Pickens, who just does not win his route, which is honestly, like, I'm not somebody who wants to like dog on Pickens a bunch, but like, this is a little disappointing, right? You want to be able to win your route against a linebacker. We know he's talented enough to do that. I know Drew Tranquil is a coverage linebacker that's pretty good, but he didn't really make him sweat. And so look at Wilson looking over there, doesn't like it. Here he goes over to read 2, doesn't like what he sees, and by this point when he's feeling the pressure, Dan Moore comes back, Wilson spins out, and this is where he uses his ball hand to try to support himself, loses the ball, and he recovers it, but it ends up being a sack for Danna, loss of 11 yards. So here I would say is a combination of 3 things leading to that. One is that the Steelers did try to get a little cute. They ran a really like pass pattern with a lot of guys who don't run pass patterns that much. Harris is out wide. Pruitt and Washington do some things with the pass, and Freiermuth was not running like a staple route out there on the edge. Like, you really are looking for Pickens to win in this situation, and Pickens didn't win. And so that was reason 1. Reason 2, the coverage was good. So from the Chiefs' perspective, they were able to cover this heavy personnel from their base. And then the Chiefs' pass rush was methodical. You don't always have to have these quick wins in order to have a good pass rush. This is a lot like what the Chiefs' pass rush was like last year, that the coverage would hold up. And so then you're really only giving the quarterback, 3 seconds or so, 3 to 4 seconds. If he can't find somebody open, the pass rush is there. And that's what the Chiefs managed to do here. They just methodically collapsed the pocket. Wilson went through 2 reads, didn't have anything, and then the pass rush was there. So ultimately a very good snap for the Chiefs defense. Pick things up with 7:22 to go in the first quarter. The Steelers are down 7-0, and they have a 2nd and 8 at their own 37-yard line. Let's run the play real quick, and then we will break it down. This is Russell Wilson in the shotgun with Jaylen Warren to his right. Calvin Austin motions over and then comes back to the slot on the right. Wilson seems to adjust the play. He drops back to throw and then bails out to his left, and George Karlaftis tracks him down as he tries to throw the ball away. Ultimately, his knee was down when he released the ball, and this was credited as a sack to George Karlaftis. So on this play, the Steelers are in a much more passing personnel group. This is 11 personnel. Jaylen Warren, the running back. Pat Freiermuth is the tight end. On the left side, we have Mike Williams. Calvin Austin starts in the slot, and George Pickens is lined up far right. The Chiefs have responded to this lighter personnel group with a lighter defense. They've added a 5th defensive back, 3, 4, 5 defensive backs on the field, and their 2 linebackers here are Bolton and Tranquil. They are playing cover 1 man. So if you see how they drop back, they end up having Brian Cook as the deep safety, and then they end up with Nick Bolton, who initially fakes a blitz and comes out as the robber. Everybody else is manned up, man-to-man. So Justin Reed takes Pat Freiermuth. Joshua Williams takes Mike Williams. Drew Tranquil has Jalen Warren. Chris Rowan Wallace has Calvin Austin in the slot. And then Trent McDuffie has George Pickens. So the route combination the Steelers run to try to combat this. So first they motion Austin right before the snap. If you notice, he went from the slot back outside. And they send Pickens up and toward the sideline and run a slant for Austin to cross. Over here, they have Mike Williams coming up the field. Freiermuth also comes up the field, and Jalen Warren escapes out and runs out to the flat. So, again, if we watch this develop, Wilson drops back, hits the back of his drop. He's looking, it looks like over here. He's definitely looking to his left. So he's either looking for one of these two, doesn't love what he sees, and then turns back to his right, looking for the slant to Austin, which is what kind of is supposed to come open based on this route combination. Ideally for them, they can get Pickens to run through and get in Chris Rowan Wallace's way to make it a little more difficult for him to follow. But there was enough of a gap here on the timing that Rowan Wallace was just able to slip under Pickens and McDuffie and stay with Austin. So that didn't pop open. At this point, Charles Omenihu is the one that's collapsing the pocket. He's pushing Jan Moore back. He's collapsing the pocket, and Wilson spins out successfully this time. But as he's looking for somebody to throw to, he doesn't feel the pursuit from George Karlaftis coming from the other side. And Karlaftis is able to track him down for the sack, and his knee clearly comes down before he's able to release the ball. And so he's sacked. Look at it from the end zone view here. And initially you want to pay attention to Charles Omenihu rushing from the defense's right end. So Wilson drops back. He looks to his left. And look at Omenihu like immediately getting Dan Moore walking backwards. And Karlaftis is getting similar collapse coming here on the defense's left. And if you look, Turk Wharton is also getting pushback against Mason McCormick. And the benefit here is that there just aren't any lanes for Wilson to go. You can see here the entire pocket is just collapsing. This is a very disciplined rush from the Chiefs. Just pushing the pocket. And similarly to the last play we looked at, Wilson basically has time to go through two reads. He goes read one, which is probably Mike Williams, and then comes back for read two, looking at Austin, and he barely gets his eyes on him real quick, and at this point he's having to bail. The pocket's not safe. It's being collapsed. He has to try to get out. And Karlaftis does a great job of seeing that and pursuing, and Wilson just never feels him from behind. And then you can see here his knee hits right here before he's able to release the ball. He gets sacked. So a similar situation to last time, right? The coverage held up enough for him to go through a couple reads. The coverage held up that the first and second reads didn't pop open. And the pass rush was consistent enough that at collapsing the pocket that by the time he got through read number two, he didn't have time anymore. So that kind of complementary play from the coverage and the pass rush is really good. And again, just really harkens back to 2023 and how the Chiefs defense was playing then. They were really in concert with each other. Omenihu coming back has given a couple people now that can cause pressure. And you see here the benefit of two players complementing each other in the pass rush. Omenihu causes the initial pressure that makes Wilson move, and Karlaftis is able to clean it up. You need two people that are doing things often in order to have results in the pass rush. If one person is causing pressure, that's usually enough for the quarterback to be able to escape. When you got two people who are causing trouble, that's when you start getting sacks, and the Chiefs look like they have that now. Now let's pick it up with 12:21 to go in the third quarter. At this point, the Steelers are down 16-7, and they have 1st and 10 at their own 30-yard line. So let's take a look at this play, and then we can break it down. Russell Wilson comes out under center. He's got Pruitt motioning over to the right. Takes the snap, play action. He drops back and is sacked from behind by Mike Danna. So let's take a look at what went on in this play. Starting up, the Steelers are lined up under center, and they're in 12 personnel. Their one running back is Najee Harris, and they've got Darnell Washington and Michael Pruitt as tight ends. Here they've got Pickens in the slot and Calvin Austin as the outside wide receiver with the two wide receivers on the field. Again, there's a heavier personnel here with the two tight ends, and the Chiefs have matched with their base defense. They've got three linebackers on the field. We've got Chanel, Bolton, and Tranquil. Here's McDuffie, Reed, Cook, and this looks like Joshua Williams. No, that might be Nazeeh Johnson. I can't see his number. I'm going to guess Nazeeh Johnson, but we'll see if we can see him better. Oh, yeah, it's 13 right there. So that's Nazeeh Johnson here as the corner, or as the defensive backs. There are four of them right there. 4 down linemen. Again, anticipating the run, they've got Derek Nottie in here. Although since Chris Jones was out, we were seeing a lot more of the big guys, Derek Nottie and Mike Pennell, in this game. All right, so what the Steelers are doing is they are running a play action and run to the right, and they're going to have Pruitt come over and block. And they end up blocking Danna, the end, with a tight end because they slide their line over to the right due to the play action. So Danna gets blocked by Washington, and Broderick Jones actually comes out to help on Tranquil coming in for the run fits. And if you can see, the play action's moderately successful in bringing the linebackers up. You can see Nazeeh Johnson comes up quite a bit. This is Chanel comes up. Tranquil could have been blitzing on this play or just like really coming up to set the edge against the run. Bolton is one that like quickly notices and comes back. So if you notice, this is a cover one man. This is our deep safety. This is our underneath defender, and everybody else is manned up. And what the Steelers are doing is just a 2-man route. They've got Austin on a deep curl, and Pickens runs a corner. Everybody else is coming in to block, helping out. And so though the Chiefs do initially kind of bite on the run fake, they do only have to cover two receivers, and Reed and McDuffie are up to the task. So there isn't an immediate place to throw. But this isn't, if you notice, one of those situations where, Wilson hits the back of his drop and is hanging out, and, the pocket gets collapsed like our last two. As Wilson hits the back of his drop, Danna's already won. This is much more of that kind of quick win by an edge rusher, and it's partially because he's on a tight end, right? Darnell Washington, who is a great blocker for a tight end. But it's a good sign for Mike Danna and for the Chiefs that teams can see on film, hey, even someone like Mike Danna, who's more known as like a great defender against the run with some moderate pass rushing chops, if you're going to try these blocking schemes where you're just going to leave a tight end one-on-one on Danna, he can beat you around the edge, especially a big blocking tight end like Darnell Washington, who's not quite as agile. He can beat him around the edge and get a quick sack. And this is the kind of pass rush that just completely blows up a play, right? The quick win is the nightmare of the offense. And Karlaftis, again, doing his part. The Chiefs in general created enough muddiness here. So with Karlaftis and Danna coming in, the only option that Wilson has is to come up. And he actually does have a lane to step up. But it's a testament to how quickly Danna got to him and then got him down that Wilson wasn't able to actually get there. If he has another instant stepping back here in the pocket, he probably has the ability to squeeze up there, and then he kind of challenged Chanel, who had eyes on him. But Danna won so quickly off the edge here. I mean, he's already coming around the edge by the time Wilson completed the play action. I mean, he's won like there. Wilson's hitting the back of his drop, and he's got a bail. So a different kind of pass rush win on this sack. This was the quick win, which is not something that you see a ton in Kansas City. They've always been a little bit of a slow burn pass rush, except for Chris Jones. So very nice to see someone like Mike Danna doing it. And you can see it here from the end zone view. Danna just immediately gets Washington's hands. Washington isn't really able to get hands on him as Danna attacks his outside hand immediately right here. and Washington's unable to get hands on him and kind of control the rush. Danna keeps him off with the long arm right here, his left arm, to try to keep Washington's hands from controlling him. Gets around and gets the sack. Really good rush there from Danna. Our next play comes from 6:41 to go in the third quarter. The Steelers are still down 16-7, and they have a 3rd and 5 around the Chiefs' 11-yard line. Let's take a look at this play, and then we can break down what happened. Steelers lined up with, in the gun, 3 to Wilson's right, 1 to the left. Wilson takes the snap, feels pressure, and moves left, and then gets tracked down pretty quickly by Tershawn Wharton for the sack, bringing up 4th down, and ultimately forcing a field goal attempt. So let's take a look at what happened here. So Wilson is in the gun, and he's got 11 personnel here. So there's one running back, Jaylen Warren, and their tight end is Pat Freiermuth, giving you 11 personnel. Their 3 wide receivers are George Pickens, who's isolated on the backside. Then you have Calvin Austin and Mike Williams lined up in trips with Pat Freiermuth. So because the Steelers have only the 1 running back and 1 tight end, the Chiefs are in their nickel with the extra defensive back. That would be Chris Roland Wallace. They have Trent McDuffie here on the outside. This is Brian Cook and Justin Reed. And then over here, this looks like Keith Taylor, which is who the Chiefs bring in as their second corner when they come into red zone situations. Bolton and Tranquil, Bolton here and Tranquil there, are the linebackers, and Bolton is lined up right up on the line of scrimmage. So they've shifted the defensive line over, kind of adding him as a 5th body. And so what the Steelers do protection-wise to cover this is they slide their line to the right. So they've got Broderick Jones is accounting for Charles Omenihu. And the right guard, Mason McCormick, has got Mike Danna, but it's almost like they've allowed the center to decide whether Zach Frazier, he's going to help out with Mason McCormick on Danna or Tershawn Wharton on Siumalu. Karlaftis is going to be blocked by Dan Moore, and they're going to have, when Bolton, if he blitzes, he's going to be accounted for by Jaylen Warren. What the Steelers do route-wise, they're going to have Pickens run a fade, and then from this bunch, they're going to have, Freiermuth first motions over, and so it's Austin, the point guy, who comes out farthest. Freiermuth comes up the seam, and then Williams runs a crosser. So Wilson takes the snap, and you can see Bolton coming through, and Warren is just a tad late getting to him. And I think that seeing Bolton right in his face, even though Warren does a good job picking up the blitz, that kind of spooks Wilson enough to move him off his spot. And the dangerous thing about moving off your spot as a quarterback is it changes blocking angles and changes rushing angles for different defensive linemen or any pass rusher. So if you look here, Wilson, as he's spooked by Bolton and then shifting over to his left, he's looking at Pickens. He wants this fade. So that's his number 1 read here that he's going for. He's looking to the fade and he comes left, but him coming left gives Tershawn Wharton an angle to come around Siumalu now that he sees that Wilson has come across. So Wharton then gets into Wilson's face as he's trying to figure out what to do. And Karlaftis, again, is closing this gap too, and Wharton's able to just track Wilson down for the quick sack. You may notice that, Mike Williams comes open kind of across the field here, and Pat Freiermuth on his seam route comes open as well. And this is one thing that's kind of tough about A, reading progressions, and B, pass pressure, because clearly Wilson's going here first, right? He's looking, that's his number 1 read. And as he hits that 1 read, he gets pressure, and so he's not really in a position ever to kind of start going through his progressions and look across the field. He is now concerned with the pass rush and just avoiding the pass rush, and he never gets a free moment after that. So he never has a chance to look over at Williams or Freiermuth, both of whom were possibilities. Although I will say that Mike Danna, who kind of dropped off when they had this blitz, did a great job staying underneath Williams. He almost looks like he's trying to spy Wilson here, but look at how he mirrors and stays underneath Williams. So I do wonder if even if Wilson had gotten over to Williams in his progression, whether he would have held that ball, because Danna has a good chance of trying to knock that down. He did a great job kind of mirroring Wilson and ultimately staying under Mike Williamson's route. But Freiermuth's pretty open. So had Wilson gotten there in a clean pocket, he might have thrown a touchdown there. But he just doesn't have the chance. Like, this is, you can't blame Russell Wilson for this. You know, this was read number one. It wasn't there, and he never had the opportunity to get off that read and look anywhere else. There was too much pressure throughout, and the Chiefs got a big sack. So you can see it here from Wilson's perspective. As he drops back, he's looking for Pickens. Pickens is the one guy on the side of the field. He's looking at the fade, and then he sees Bolton come into his line of vision, and it makes him slide. And you can see how that slide then gives an angle for Wharton to come get him. So sometimes, and it's hard because if Wilson just, continues back in his drop, I mean, Warren does ultimately neutralize this, but Wilson's movement is enough to get away from it that Wharton gets an angle to come get him and ultimately sack him. But you can see here, where is the chance for him to even look back anywhere? I mean, one could argue maybe if he had come off the fade earlier, like right here, if he comes off the fade and sees Williams, maybe he tries a throw there, but you can see Danna coming underneath that route. I don't know that Wilson ever looked over there, but even if he did, see here, he's just looking at Wharton and he has nowhere to throw. But even if he did, maybe he sees Danna. Although, he could probably, this does become a window issue. If you miss this throw high, it's picked. A little short, it's tipped and then maybe picked. And then you've got McDuffie behind. So it's not like this is an easy throw to Williams. I feel like the throw to Freiermuth would have been easier, but he has no chance of getting over there. Ultimately gets sacked. So this is kind of a third way in which the pass rush won. This one by an effective blitz that got him to move off his spot. And again, it's that complementary thing. It's not just one person causing a problem and causing a sack. Well, I guess you could say that about Mike Danna's sack that we just reviewed, the one where he beat Washington around the edge. But this is really like multiple guys doing things and the rush coming together and one of them cleaning up with the sack, which is how the Chiefs have been doing it when they're at their best. And it's really nice to see that they look like they're getting back there right in time for the stretch run to the playoffs. All right, and so our fifth sack of the game comes with 14:51 to go in the fourth quarter. At this point, the Chiefs are up 22-10, and the Steelers have the ball 2nd and 10 at their own 30-yard line. So let's take a look at what happens on this play, and then we can break it down. Wilson from under center, he fakes a handoff, is back surveying, and then ultimately gets sacked from behind by Felix Anudike-Uzomah. So good to see the Chiefs' 2023 first-round pick get a sack here, and we'll break down a little more about how he did it. First of all, the Steelers are lined up here in 11 personnel. They've got one running back, Najee Harris, one tight end, Darnell Washington. Their three wide receivers are George Pickens down here, Calvin Austin, and this looks like, I can't tell, maybe that's Van Jefferson. Can't really see his number. But I think that's Van Jefferson. That looks like an 11. So those are your wide receivers. Then the Chiefs match again in nickel. They've got 5 defensive backs. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Looks like Williams, Reed. This is Jaden Hicks. This looks like McDuffie. I'm going to guess that is Najee Johnson over there. That's what it looks like to me. Yep. So they've got McDuffie here in the slot. Then their linebackers are Bolton and Tranquil, as they typically do in the nickel. one end they have Karlaftis, the other end this time they have Felix Anudike-Uzomah. So they're really thinking more pass rush situation, although that's not necessarily true because FAU has become a much better run defender. One might argue even a better run defender than a pass rusher this year, which is not what we expected. So what the Chiefs are going to do defensively is they're just going to run a standard cover 2. 2 safeties take half, and then they just drop everybody back in zone. The corners in a cover 2 have kind of both flat and intermediate cloud responsibilities. And then McDuffie drops back too. So then the route combinations here, they're going to have Pickens kind of run a corner, which is a good route to run against a cover 2. And then they have Jefferson run a deep over. Austin is going to come in like he's going to block in the run cell, and then he's going to leak out. And then after his play action, Najee Harris is going to leak over the middle as well. So if we watch this, here's the play action. Now Russell does hit the back of his drop, and it looks like he wants this over to Jefferson. And he does kind of have a beat here. And if you look, he kind of right there, he kind of looks like he's about to throw it, But Tranquil does a good job dropping back, and I think that's what deters this throw. And that's enough time for FAU to come sack him. So this isn't like a, win within 2.5 seconds rush, but this is a great individual rush from FAU, and we'll see it better from the end zone view. He does a great job beating Dan Moore around the corner and getting this sack. But we'll look into the move he pulls later. But this is very encouraging for those of us who are interested in the development of Felix Anudike-Uzomah. One-on-one pass rush, beats him around the corner, comes in and gets a sack. Love seeing that from him. But other things to note from this play, the Chiefs didn't really get that put out of sorts by the play fake. If you watch the linebackers, here, Tranquil takes a step forward, but they retreat pretty quickly, and Tranquil is able to get back over the underneath the deep over to the point that he deters Wilson from throwing it. So the play fake was not so effective in getting the Chiefs bothered and, creating openings for the passing game here. They did a good job kind of reading it and staying underneath everything. Wilson didn't really have anywhere to go. Now, let's look at FAU's rush from the end zone view. So he's one-on-one against Dan Moore. And he gets hands on him, and he does a nice snatch move right here. He grabs his pads, pulls quick, and gets around. It's a nice pass rush move. And it's not, the quickest win, but this is another situation where Wilson he doesn't have a ton here, but he's got one read. So this is where he was kind of looking to throw, but look at Tranquil getting underneath Jefferson on the over route. He's got one read that he can't hit, and then the pass rush is there. And if the Chiefs are able to do this from the secondary, if they're able to just limit a quarterback to 1 to 2 reads and then get there with the pass rush, this will be a very effective defense. It's really nice to see. And it's nice to see that on top of the coverage kind of helping to allow for the sacks, that the pass rush is coming through, and you're getting individual wins like this one from FAU, where this is a, NFL pass rush move here. Gets hands on the tackle, snatches him, pulls by quick, corners, gets a sack. That's awesome to see. And if that is going to continue, this combination of coverage, pocket collapsing, and some individual wins, this could be a very promising pass rush for the Chiefs at the right time, coming all together for the playoffs.